It's almost a cliche, isn't it, saying the world's gotten smaller.
It really is, yeah. But, I mean, look around, it's true.
Economies are completely intertwined. You've got instant communication across the globe, travel, culture. It's all mixing constantly.
Uh-huh. It's this deep interconnectedness, this, well, globalization, like you said.
And it's had some massive results. And today, it feels like we're bringing a lot of threads together, actually, diving deep into one of the absolute biggest results at the United Nations.
Absolutely. The UN isn't just some abstract concept floating out there.
Right.
It's a direct consequence of this intensifying globalization. You can think of it as a global framework, sort of designed to navigate the complexities when nations get so tangled up with each other.
Okay.
So for anyone wanting to really get international relations, especially linking back to all the history and trends we've explored before, the UN is just pivotal.
It helps explain the why behind so much.
Exactly. The why behind global politics, past and present, it really shines a light.
Okay. So our mission today, bringing it all together, is to really understand how the UN got started and what its core functions are.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to focus on those key parts, the General Assembly, the Security Council, and really look at its successes and, well, let's be honest, its limitations, too, in this globalized world we live in.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so let's unpack this. Where did the whole idea for the UN even, start?
Well, it didn't just pop into existence, obviously. It really came straight out of the ashes of World War II.
Right, the devastation.
The sheer scale of that conflict just made it crystal clear that we needed a better way, a much more effective way for nations to interact.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic goal was, well, straightforward on paper, but incredibly ambitious. Create a space where countries could talk, negotiate, find common ground before things escalated to violence.
Okay, and people often call it League of Nations 2.0, right? So what was the deal with the original League? Why didn't that work out?
That's a really good comparison, actually.
Yeah.
The League of Nations, it was set up after World War I with very similar aims. But the big problem was it lacked teeth. It just didn't have the authority it needed to actually enforce its decisions.
How so? What happened?
Well, think about Hitler. The League told him, hey, stop expanding, and he basically just ignored them, went right on ahead. Same thing with Japan's actions over in Asia. The League could talk, but it couldn't make countries follow its rules. It didn't have the power, the mechanisms.
So the UN was specifically designed to fix those weaknesses then? It wasn't just about having a chat. There needed to be some kind of, enforcement power baked in.
Precisely. Learning from failure. And the main goals were pretty clear.
Which were?
Two big ones. First, prevent future wars. Directly addressing the failures that, led straight into World War II.
Makes sense.
And second, actively get nations cooperating on all sorts of things, not just security.
Okay. And how did they set that up?
They created several different bodies. But for our deep dive today, we're really focusing on two of the most important ones, the General Assembly and the Security Council.
Right. Let's start with the General Assembly. What's its basic job?
Okay, imagine the General Assembly, like a huge global town hall meeting. It's the main place for deliberation in the UN.
And it's big.
Oh, yeah, it's vast.
Yeah.
You've got representatives from almost every single country on Earth. Currently, it's 193 out of 195 recognized states.
Wow, 193. That's practically everyone. Who are the two that aren't full members then?
Yeah, good question. They have this special status, permanent observers.
Okay.
One is Vatican City, the Catholic Church's sovereign state. The Pope generally prefers to keep a bit of distance from the day-to-day rough and tumble of international politics.
Interesting.
Yeah, it ties into some aspects of Catholic doctrine, like papal infallibility. It's fascinating how even religious ideas interact with global bodies.
Huh. And the other one?
The other is Palestine. They have applied for full membership several times, but haven't gotten it yet. We'll touch on why when we get to the Security Council.
Okay, so observers can talk but not vote.
Exactly. They can join the debates, make statements, but they don't get a vote on the resolutions.
Got it. So this massive group, 193 voting members, what do they actually do in this global town hall?
So the General Assembly's job is to discuss issues, make policy recommendations on pretty much anything affecting member nations. There's a really strong focus on humanitarian concerns.
Like what? Can you give an example?
Sure. A really big early one was creating UNICEF, the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. That happened way back in 1946.
Oh, right. UNICEF. Everyone knows UNICEF, so that came straight out of the General Assembly.
Directly. And since then, UNICEF has been leading global efforts for things like child immunizations, education programs, providing emergency aid to kids and mothers in crises all over the world. Really vital work. And actually, here's something really interesting. The General Assembly's importance, its influence, it really ballooned in the second half of the 20th century.
How did that happen?
Well, that was the era of decolonization, right?
Ah, yes.
So as all these newly independent countries emerged, especially in Africa and Asia, they joined the UN, and the General Assembly became the key place for them.
The main stage for them.
Exactly. To voice their needs, to negotiate, to tackle the huge challenges that come with, setting up as an independent nation. It really became a much more representative global forum.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, fascinating. Let's switch gears now to the other big one, the Security Council. This one sounds maybe more powerful, more focused.
It's definitely structured differently, yeah. The Security Council is the UN's main body for maintaining international peace and security. That's its core job.
Peace and security. Okay. And how is it structured? You said it's different.
It's much smaller than the General Assembly,
Yeah.
only 15 members total.
15, compared to 193.
Right. And within those 15, there's a key distinction. 5 are permanent members: the U.S., China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom.
The P5, the winners of WWII, essentially.
That's the historical basis, yes. And then there are 10 other non-permanent members who are elected for 2-year rotating terms.
Okay. So the idea is the General Assembly is broad representation. Security Council is more about focused action on security threats.
That's the design, yes. Focused action on the really critical stuff.
And those 5 permanent members, the P5, they have a special power, don't they? The famous veto.
Ah, yes, the veto. That's absolutely crucial. Each one of those 5 permanent members can block any substantive resolution the Security Council tries to pass. Just one no vote from a P5 member kills it.
Wow. Why was that even included? Wasn't the point to act together?
Well, the idea behind it, written into the UN Charter, was that any major action, especially military action, really needed the buy-in of the world's major powers at the time to ensure stability, supposedly.
Supposedly. But how has it actually worked out? Has it created issues?
Let's just say it's led to some significant complexities and real tensions.
Complexities feels like a polite word for it. I mean, doesn't one country being able to stop everyone else kind of defeat the whole purpose of collective security?
That's a fantastic question. And yeah, it cuts right to a core problem the UN has always wrestled with.
So what happened?
Well, think about the Cold War. The Security Council was basically paralyzed a lot of the time.
Because the U.S. and the Soviets were P5 members.
Exactly. They constantly used their vetoes to block anything that went against their own interests or their allies' interests.
So the UN couldn't actually step in to stop a lot of conflicts.
Often, no. National interests, especially of the superpowers, frequently trump the idea of collective global action within the Security Council. It's this built-in tension, global good versus national sovereignty. It's still a huge challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. It sounds like the original idea had some serious unintended side effects. Is the veto still a big deal today?
Oh, absolutely. A very clear, very recent example. The UN resolution trying to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine back in 2022.
Right.
It got massive support in the General Assembly, huge condemnation. But in the Security Council, Russia, being a permanent member with a veto, just blocked any similar resolution there. End of story for council action.
So even with near global agreement, one P5 member can just say no.
Precisely. It starkly shows the limits.
And you mentioned Palestine earlier and how we'd come back to it with the Security Council. How does the veto affect their membership status?
Right. So Palestine's applications for full UN membership have repeatedly been vetoed, primarily by the United States, sometimes with the UK's support as well. Both are permanent members.
And why is that?
It's largely tied to the ongoing conflict with Israel. You have to remember the history of the way Israel was created, partitioning land that was then mostly Muslim Palestine, had strong backing from Western powers like the US and UK. And the resulting conflict over land and statehood has remained incredibly sensitive. So the US and UK have used their Security Council vetoes to prevent Palestine from gaining that full UN member status. So the veto is a massive constraint, a huge limitation on what the Security Council can actually do, but it must have some tools beyond just passing resolutions, right?
Yeah.
You hear about UN peacekeepers.
Yes, absolutely. The Security Council does have other tools. It has the authority to authorize the deployment of military peacekeepers. Their job is usually to help stabilize violent situations, monitor ceasefires, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And it can also impose economic sanctions on countries, financial restrictions, trade embargoes, targeting states seen as threatening peace, violating human rights, or causing conflict. These are more direct actions than just talking.
Right. Have the peacekeeping missions ever really worked? Can you give a success story? Yeah, there have been successes. A pretty clear example is Liberia, back in 2003. After a really brutal civil war, UN peacekeepers were crucial. They helped monitor the ceasefire, disarmed fighters, and generally helped create a more stable situation. It shows the potential, you know.
Okay, so it can work, Liberia 2003, but you implied there were failures too.
Tragically, yes. The Rwandan genocide in 1994 is probably the most stark example of the Security Council's failures, even when peacekeepers were already there.
What happened?
There was a significant UN peacekeeping force on the ground in Rwanda before the genocide started. But their response to the escalating mass violence was slow, it was hampered by a weak mandate, not enough resources, and frankly, a lack of political will from the major powers on the Security Council to really intervene strongly.
So they couldn't prevent it.
They couldn't prevent the deaths of, estimates say, around 1 million people. It was a horrifying failure, and it highlighted all the problems. Mandate limits, lack of resources, and crucially, that lack of political will among the member states. It's a really sobering reminder of the gap between the UN's ideals and, well, the harsh realities of international politics.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like the UN is this incredibly complex beast. High ideals, but very real-world limits and problems. Let's circle back to where we started, though. How does this complex thing, the UN, connect back to globalization?
Well, its very existence is kind of proof of how interconnected the world became, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was created because the world needed a way to manage all the interactions that come with globalization.
So it's a consequence of globalization?
It's definitely a consequence,
Yeah.
but it's also a driver of globalization.
How?
By providing that forum for dialogue, by setting international norms and standards on everything from, say, trade and health to human rights, by coordinating cooperative efforts. The UN helps weave that global fabric even tighter. It pushes globalization forward, too. It's a two-way street.
Interesting. A dynamic interplay. Okay, so let's try to sum up this deep dive, maybe connect it back as a sort of capstone to all the global shifts we've talked about before.
Sounds good.
We've seen how the UN was born from the ashes of WWII, aiming to prevent war, foster cooperation, and crucially, learn from the League of Nations failures.
Right, with those two key bodies we focused on.
Exactly. The General Assembly, that big, inclusive global forum, and the Security Council, with its specific job for peace and security, but also with that really powerful and often controversial veto held by the 5 permanent members.
Precisely. And understanding that set up the roles, the powers, the limitations, especially the veto, it gives you such crucial context for making sense of our interconnected world today.
Right. It helps you, the listener, sort of decode what's happening in international politics, understand current events, and see how all these global forces we've discussed culminate in these international structures.
It's a vital lens, really. Essential for navigating the complexities.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, especially thinking about this theme of interconnectedness that's run through our whole journey together. We've seen this inherent tension, right, between what individual nations want their national interests and the whole idea of global cooperation that the UN tries to represent.
That core tension.
So as globalization keeps changing our world, maybe even accelerating, how do you think international organizations like the UN might need to change? How might their structure, their effectiveness need to evolve to actually meet the huge, complex challenges we know are coming down the line? Something to mull over.